Hello, my name is Zara Hoffman. I'm the self-published author of a young adult paranormal romance trilogy, The Belgrave Legacy, and a new adult sci-fi romance trilogy, Stellar Blood. All of these books will be linked down below in the description, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the importance of trigger warnings. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a very long time, but when I'm in school, I don't really have the freedom to make some videos on topics that might be a little bit more upsetting to my own mental health because I need to stay focused and productive in order to stay on top of deadlines. But it is the new year, and this is something that I have been sitting on for a long time, and I told my therapist that if I didn't make this video, I probably never would. So let's get into it. So for people who don't know, trigger warnings or content warnings are short sentences that are put in front of written content or video content, but those video content warnings are normally in the form of this right here, or like how Netflix had to add one to the start of 13 Reasons Why. The description of the show, which is based on the book, was very clear that it is about suicide, but it didn't go into enough detail on the graphic nature of how the show was going to show the suicide versus the very non-violent pills, which is how she dies in the book. These content warnings can include anything from excessive violence to the more specific, their sexual assaults. Because to me personally, if a show or a book were to say there are depictions of violence, that doesn't tell me enough, because I'm personally, unfortunately, pretty desensitized to violence when it comes to murder in shows like NCIS or decapitations or people having their hearts ripped out like in shows The Vampire Diaries, or, you know, kind of gruesome possessions like in the show Supernatural. But to me, anything to do with sexual assault is a huge trigger for me given my own trauma history. So, a news article whose title is clickbaity or attention grabbing, where it includes the term rapist or sexual assault victim or things like that. Sexual assault victim there isn't really an alternative, unfortunately, but when I see the word rapist in a title, it always really shocks me. And full disclosure, my heart rate is actually going up as I'm talking about this. So if there were ways to not shock people in the title, but then have it right underneath the main image of an article, that would be so much better for my mental health. And there are accounts like the Washington Post, which will post on their Instagram an image of the title and then other slides that you can go through to get more context. And I actually had to unfollow them because it was hurting my mental health so much for me to open the Instagram app and then all of a sudden see that. I can't tell you the number of times I texted my therapist or sent my therapist one of those links and posts, and you know, she doesn't have the same history as me, which is great because I would never wish my history on anyone. And she would always say like, oh, I'm so sorry. But the real reason I'm making this video is actually because as an English major, I have been exposed to so much triggering content that people don't really think about. And there are people who think that trigger warnings in general are coddling the snowflake generation of millennials and Gen Z and maybe even Generation Alpha. I know a lot of people think that they're, still babies, but actually Generation Alpha is like 12 and a few years younger now. My cousins are that age, and then babies now are the next generation. I don't even know what they're called aside from like the joking term of Zoomers, because everyone was born during the current health crisis, because people were stuck inside and things like that. So examples. This video has a trigger warning. A very obvious example of that is Lolita, which, if you don't know, is about a grown man having predatory sexual desires toward a young girl. And just saying that out loud and thinking about it like really icks me out. But then you have things that people will be surprised about or don't really think about. And that can include the poem Ulysses by Lord Alfred Tennyson. I was assigned to read that for my intro to English at NYU. I took so many intro English classes because I kept transferring schools, so I know it was at NYU. And I'm reading it, and all of a sudden there is a maybe 4-sentence, a single stanza description of a rape. And back when I was still an undergrad, I was at the point in my therapy where I would still dissociate if I got triggered, just so that I could continue functioning and finish doing my homework and things like that. But I would start skimming. I would be unable to actually focus well to my normal degree. And I was also in a Jane Austen class at NYU that I had to drop because the teacher kept talking about other literature that wasn't Jane Austen. And every single example that she pulled was of a sexual assault scene in a book written by a man in the same time period as Jane Austen was writing non-problematic books. I understand that that was context, but she kept doing it every single class, and I had to drop it because I just couldn't handle it. Now, there are some people who can take a trigger warning and then consume the content, and I've been able to do that for more things as I've gotten better. And it's more the fact that when there isn't a trigger warning, you are triggering people who then may go into shock of some sort that then disrupts their lives. So with a trigger warning, they can brace themselves and make an informed decision on whether or not they want to proceed. I also run into this problem with a lot of manuscripts that I've been reading for my literary agency internships. This is nothing against the books. They've all actually been pretty well written, the ones that I've been reading, luckily. And there are certain genres where it's expected that there is violence against women, although that is something that I wish we would move away from. It's not exactly fridging like there is in comic books, where a female character is victimized or killed to motivate the male hero to act, which really, really sucks. And if you want to learn more about that, I will leave a link down below. But thrillers and adult fantasy, and I say adult fantasy as in it's not YA, not that it's erotica, and even historical romance has a habit of having violence against women. And I can't read those genres really on my own for my own pleasure, which really sucks because there are so many thrillers that the premise on the back of the book draw me in, but I know past experiences that reading the book would be upsetting for me. So this is a public service announcement, a plea, whatever you want to call it, to the publishing industry, not just books, but also news, like I mentioned earlier in this video, to please start including trigger warnings. You include trigger warnings in TV and film to say this has smoking, which at this point, I don't think people care that that's in something. Like, everyone knows that it's unhealthy, and the people who do it are either already addicted or they just decide to do it. So if you can include trigger warnings for that, Why can't we do this? It takes one sentence. I did it in the start of all of my Stellar Blood books. I say there is a trigger warning because this does have a captor-captive relationship, even though I wrote it in a way so that he's not actually abusing her at any point. And then for the third book, spoiler alert, kind of, you can see it if you do the preview look inside on Amazon. On the trigger warning page for that book, I added a specific trigger warning, and I said the chapter, although I'm not asking all authors to do that necessarily, but I say the chapter where the upsetting thing happens. And Natalie Locke, who's a fellow AuthorTuber, who I will link down below because she's really awesome, she said that I should include in my trigger warning that there is torture. Now, I didn't go back and add that to the first two books, even though they're in there too, but it really escalates in the third book, so I did say that as well. It's not hard. It's 1 to 2 to 3 sentences that you put at the start of your book. The author can write it, the editor can write it, the agent can suggest it to the editor, and then the editor copies and pastes it. There is really no excuse at this point in age when we are taking mental health a lot more seriously than maybe it has been in the past to not be doing this. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below to help with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on this channel in 2022, so I can finally monetize this channel. Also, I would like to give a huge thank you to my Ko-fi supporters, whether you're at the AuthorTube tier like Nicole, Candra, Jarek, and Violet. Or if you're at the Book Buddy tier like Barrett, Lori, or if you are at my VIP club tier like Regina Duke, Chronoyami, and I will see you with a vlog posted later this week. Bye!